I'm gonna catch up with my good friend Dave Book out here. Dave and I we're listening through Waymaker, and we've decided that it's the same chord progression as Fix You by Coldplay. Yeah. And that I might try and throw in the old Fix You lead part. Yeah. At least it run through. I can do it. You can do it. If not, I'm just gonna play top stuff. Each one of us here at our church, and you can set this up in a lot of situations, we each have our own individual in-ear mix that we can control ourselves. And so the way we do that on stage is with these iPads. And I posted a video, like that 360 video from our rehearsal where you could hear my in-ear mix, and you're going to hear my in-ear mix today in this video. And I had a lot of questions, so I'm going to try and address some of those. One of the questions was, like, how many of these iPads do we have? We really have maybe 5 or 6, and we just kind of share them. So let me show you real quick exactly how we can do this. Now this is going to be specific to our board, which is a Midas Pro X. But I mean, at our campuses we use Behringer X32s, which are very inexpensive for what they are, digital consoles, and they work exactly the same way. In fact, you can control them from your iPhone or Android or iOS device using their app. But this is how it works for us. Let me show you. Okay, so this is like the first thing you would see. There's a huge glare on this iPad. And so what we do is you come in here, and on this side you can select your mix. So I would come in, I am EG1. So you know, if our, like Fuller, who's sitting right here, is EM1, that would be Fuller's mix. And this is my mix.
All the EMs are vocalists.
EG1 would be my mix. Okay, and so here you can see all of the channels that I have available to me. This is all the channels from our board. So this is all the drums, and you can see exactly how I have it mixed. Drums, overhead drums. What
triggers.
Are these? These are the triggers. I don't really have that. Coming through here. You've got toms, this is cajon, like we're not using any of this weekend. And then you come in, here's my guitar, okay? So I can turn myself way up if I want, or not. Hopefully I got it back to where I had it. This is Fuller's guitar. This is JP's acoustic guitar. Here, we lost it. Here are the keys. So this would be Ray on the keys. Aux keys. We got all these channels that we're not currently using on our board today, but we can if we want to. These are the tracks, right, Fuller, these green ones? So these are the tracks, like from the multi-tracks that we use. So as you can see, I don't have a lot of them at all. Here's our click track, which is important. Here are vocals. That's Fuller's vocal, Lucy, Felicia, Emily, JP. So you can see I have a pretty good amount of the vocals. This is the band director. So hopefully you'll hear when I show you the click track, you can hear John today is our band director. He's playing bass as well. He comes through this channel. So you want to have that up because he's going to give us cues. And then there's a lot of auxiliary stuff that we're not using. Our board has a lot of channels. You come over here and we have room mics. I'll show you those in just a second. But these are the level of room mics. This allows me
These are near the board.
These are near the board, and these are the ones
right
on
by the stage. Yep.
Okay. So this will allow me to hear the room. So I can hear the congregation. These are the ones I want to turn up, the crowd, if I want to hear people singing and stuff, which I do. And then you can come through here, and these are all our extra channels. So what I can do in any of our musicians on stage is we can adjust any of those channels, and it only affects what the individual hears in their own in-ear mix. And we really just let people take care of their own mix. So Dave running the board doesn't set anybody's in-ear mixes. Now he'll certainly help people if people say, you know, I can't hear myself. What can I do? I have myself turned all the way up and everything else is down. I still can't hear myself, which happens. So Dave will help in that regard. But that's how we set our mixes. So now as far as like what I actually use for in-ears, these are my in-ear monitors that I've had for a long time. These are 1964 ears, Ray. So now they're 64 audio. It shows you how long I've had these. I bought these back when it was 1964 ears. These are the V6 Stage model, which is a 6-driver in-ear monitor. They're molded, so I had to go to an audiologist and they injected goo into my ear.
That's right.
Then it hardened and took a mold of my ear. And then 1964 molded these based on that. And as far as getting the mix to your ears, you can do that any number of ways. We all have wireless packs, except for Jimmy on the drums. You don't have a wireless pack. You plug straight in, right into a headphone amp. So you can run headphone amps, cables to headphone amps out of your mixer, and then extension cables from a headphone amp to your ears and be cabled. That's a cheap way to do it. Or you can buy wireless packs for everybody. It's a very expensive way to do it.
10 seconds.
One, two, ready, count. Ready, 2, 3, 4. Verse 2, 3, 4.
So one of the questions in the rehearsal video that I posted, which is linked below where you can hear my mix for a full song, is how do you get it to sound so clear? Everyone, a lot of people commented on that saying that in-ear mix sounds really lots of clarity and you can hear everything. How do you do it? And so this is an important point about in-ear mixes, and depending on the board that you have, you probably have the ability to do this. You can choose on the sends that you get for your in-ears, like an X32, a Behringer X32 will let you do this. You can choose whether those instruments or those channels are pre-effects or post-effects, right? And so if they're pre-effects, that means you can choose effects and faders. Pre-effects, pre-fader, post-effects, post-fader. Here's how it works. If it's pre-everything, that means the signal that you get for your in-ear mix has no processing done to it at all.
Correct.
Which means everything is going to sound really dull, really flat, really muffled, really muddy, okay? If you have a person running sound for you that knows what they're doing, that is applying compression and EQ to all your channels, you want your in-ear mix to be post-effects. That means the signal that you get to your in-ears is the affected signal that has the EQ and the compression settings from the board.
Correct.
Typically those are the two things you're going to get, EQ and compression. Now those channels are going to be EQ'd and compressed to fit the room, and that is going to not be optimized for your in-ear mix because those are two different environments, but you're going to get a lot more clarity. Again, this is assuming your sound person knows what they're doing.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is not always the case.
You have to make.
But it's going to make it so that your in-ear mix has a lot more clarity. Everything's going to be a lot of times what you're going to do. The first thing a sound engineer will do is pull off a lot of low end from everything except the kick drum and the bass and maybe the keys, and they're going to add a lot of clarity and remove muddiness around 400 to 500 hertz on a lot of channels. That's going to make everything sound so much cleaner and clearer. So if you have the ability to go post effects to your in-ears, that's always a good idea to do. The other thing you can do is post fader. And post fader is typically a bad idea because that means any movement that the sound person does to any channel goes into your ears. So if you're a guitar player like me this week and they turn your guitar down, it's going to turn your guitar down in your ears. So you want your mix, your in-ear mix, to be pre-fader but post effects. I hope that makes sense. So what I like to hear is click track and drums and bass, because the rhythm, the rhythm section is important. From there, I have a lot of my guitar. I have a pretty good amount of Fuller's guitar, because what he and I play together, Fuller is playing electric guitar this
highly
week too.
complementary.
Yeah, so you really need to be in sync with the other, like if you're a guitar player and there's other guitar players or keys, you need to not be all over each other's toes, right?
Seriously.
So Fuller's playing, you're doing mostly rhythm parts today, right?
lots
But
of
we
chords.
kind of trade off leads and
I do a
some
lead here
songs.
and there on a pass, but
Yeah.
nothing crazy.
And when he is, I'm not.
Yeah.
That's the point, right? And then I like to hear some keys, especially when Ray's playing, because Ray's awesome. Yeah,
he
and
did.
I have acoustic in there. I don't have, and somebody mentioned this in the video that I posted about from rehearsal. I don't have a bunch of background vocals.
Yeah.
Because I'm not singing today, and so a lot of BGVs in a mix can make it really muddy if they're not mixed well, and so I find it's easier just to like bring them in pretty low, so you can kind of hear them and feel them in the mix, but I don't really hear them individually. But if I'm singing, then I want to hear them, because I want to make sure that I'm, in sync with them. But Fuller, you're leading worship, and you typically are leading worship when you set yours up. How do you set your intermix up? What do you want to hear? Or what are some points that you would have for worship leaders setting up an intermix? Because it's important for them to be able to hear everything.
As a worship leader, if you are also the band director and your job is to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to, you're going to want to hear everybody. And that's kind of that's an important thing to know. So if you're a worship leader and you don't have any of the BGVs in your ears, but yet you're also coaching the BGVs, it's almost impossible. So for me as the worship leader, if I want to be able to hear everything, I personally like a band mix is what I call it. It's basically just like as if it were the album. I like to hear everything in its appropriate places, so I can hear contextually what everybody's doing. In case the bass player's playing a wrong note, or keyboardists are doing something funky, overplaying or something like that. The one place I would say, I think the key to getting a good mix is it's all about gain structure.
Yes.
And I don't want to bore you, but basically gain structure is how loud everything is, right? And your in-ear pack in your headphones can only be a certain level loud before they stop, where they hit their lid. And so if a lot of times the biggest obstacle I think people face is they can't hear themselves because everything else is too loud, so they try to turn themselves up. In reality, what you have to do is turn everyone else down. And so that's kind of the concept of gain structure. So what I do when I'm starting an ear mix, I will start with my vocals. I want to hear my vocal at a comfortable level above everything else. So I'll start with everything else off or down, and then I'll sing, and until I feel like that's a comfortable level. And then I'll bring the click up, because that's the next important thing is click, because as a band director, you need to know if the band's off. So I want click up there, not too loud. I want it comfortable enough to where I can feel it, but if I'm not listening for it, it kind of disappears into the background. You have to be careful, because a lot of people want click really loud. You don't want it too loud. That can damage your hearing pretty quick.
Plus, it'll bleed through into the microphone.
And it bleeds through, which is terrible. So I'll start vocals here, click track, comfortable level. And then for me, since I'm playing guitar this week, I'll bring my guitar up as well. So I'll bring vocals, click, and then I'll bring my guitar to a level that I can hear it when I'm playing softly. Then from there, everything else comes up, but nothing surpasses that. So I don't ever have I can't hear myself. I'll just start bringing things up. I'll bring up Brian's guitar until it's at a level where I can hear him, but not over top of what I'm playing. So if I'm not playing, I can hear Brian. If I am playing, I can kind of feel what he's playing. Or if he's playing a lead line, I can hear that because of usually when you play a lead line, you're going up an octave. So by nature, the higher pitches cut through the mix better.
Plus, I set my patches up so that I boost myself.
Exactly, which is very convenient. I always bring bass and kick drum next. Those are the two most important things, kick and bass. And then I'll bring a little keys up, a little acoustic guitar, and then BGVs around that. I don't listen to a lot of BGVs. because a lot of times I'll pull my ears out and I'll listen to the house mix, or you just kind of feel the energy on stage. I also turn my room mics up a lot because I want to feel what the room is feeling as a worship leader. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but always start with yourself and turn everything to 0, start with yourself, and then start bringing things up.
I thought Dave could talk a little bit about what sound engineers can do to help musicians with in-ear mixes, because it's important.
Yeah, for sure. That's big. There's a couple things you want to do at front of house to really set up the in-ear mixes of your musicians for success. The first thing is making sure that you have good gain staging. So making sure that you're right at the top, usually that first knob or the knob that says gain on your console, wherever it is, to make sure that your level is hitting around -12 dB. Because once it hits 0, if it goes over that, it's going to distort.
That's for a digital console.
For a digital console. So to set gain, just hit solo on your console. It's called PFL on some consoles. It may be called something a little bit different, but typically it's right next to the mute button below it. And then go ahead and change your gain until you see the meter that comes up, your solo meter. Usually it'll be a big meter near your master, and that's going to show you really good levels so that you can really get your gain dialed in to where you're hitting about -12 dB, and some of the loudest parts maybe -10 dB. That's going to give you a little headroom so that if your vocalist gets excited during your service, they may get up close to 0, but they're never going to actually distort and start peaking.
Yeah. And I think the big thing for in-ears is like when you set your in-ear mix, like you can set whatever level you want.
Right.
But if
the gain ain't set, it's going to jack you up.
Yeah, and if the audio person changes the gain, that changes it in everybody's
Absolutely.
ears.
So what I'll do here is a lot of times, first thing we'll do in rehearsal is we will run our biggest song, the song that our people are going to sing the loudest, our vocalists, and we'll tell them, like, sing it out. We will set all of our gain to that loudest song, that biggest song, so that once that's set, then everybody can start mixing their own in-ears. And I don't really touch gain a whole lot.
And after that, you don't change gains.
I'm hands off because I don't want that to mess with every single person's ears. You may have had a scenario where you're on an iPad and you had somebody messing with their mix and they say, well, I'm all the way up and the other person's halfway up and I can hear them louder than me. Well, usually 90% of the time there is a problem that is wrong with the gain that is actually causing that issue.
Input gain.
So it's super important that the input gain.
Lots of people have that issue.
I promise you, it happens a lot.
Yeah.
Now, there are a lot of other parts of the gain stage that can also mess you up. Compression in your EQ, if you have an insert, all those things at every stage can cut down on gain or can add gain. Maybe we'll talk more about that in a future video of those other things that affect your gain staging. But right off the bat, the first biggest thing is get your gain set with some healthy levels. Not too high, but in that -12 dB to -10 dB range.
So Fuller and I had both mentioned the fact that we have room mics that we can use and crowd mics that we can put in our in-ear mix. A lot of people ask when we talk about in-ear mixing, they hate it, and a lot of people don't like using in-ears for monitoring because you feel so isolated from what's going on in the congregation. One thing you can do is put mics in your room somewhere. So these are the crowd mics.
So this is our crowd mic. It's an AKG C1000.
And we have 2 of these AKG mics, one here, one on the other side of the stage, and they're just pointed right at the congregation. So they will pick up the congregation during the worship service. The other mic that we have, it's called Room, so that's called Crowd. We have another set of mics right here, and this would be like the room mic. Okay, so these are a mic that Dave just told me about called Gauge. There they are, it's written right there. He said they do mic emulations, kind of like my Slate mic would do. And yeah, they just pick up sort of what it sounds like in the room from the band mix. So that gives you, like, if you pull these up in your ears, we get like a mix what Dave is mixing, and then the front ones give us more of what the congregation sounds like when they're singing out. So that helps it feel less isolated. Something you can do and experiment with in your church if you're looking for something like that. You got to have extra channels on your board though to bring them in. Fuller and I were talking in the car on the way in this morning. I'm making a commitment to my health, which is something that's a good thing to do.
That is a good thing.
And one of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to try for 30 days to be super strict towards what I eat. Only whole foods, nothing processed, no like processed breads or pastry. But also,
I'll do it with you. Let's start tomorrow.
Okay, I'm starting right now.
Okay, well.
But you can start tomorrow. And then we'll do it.
Well,
till Thanksgiving.
Editing.
Till Thanksgiving. Today is, what is the date? This goes up. Usually these videos
I'm
go
going
up.
full keto tomorrow.
It's November the 3rd.
Correct.
I'm not doing dairy. I'm cutting dairy out. And so
You're on your
I
own
have
with that
this
one.
coffee. I have this Americano with no milk or cream or anything.
You need to go Stoke
And I
then,
gotta say something. Starbucks coffee is gross. I'm just
bitter.
gonna say
It's
it.
bitter.
It's gross. Stoke.
You know what's not? Stoke is not.
I can drink Stoke just
I can drink Stoke
black.
without cream.
It's so good.
It's the only thing I can drink without cream.
So right now this is super bitter and gross, and my breath is disgusting. I'm sorry.
You smell fine to me.
I don't know. Keep your distance. We got 3 minutes, Fuller.
All right, let's
That
do it.
thing weirds me out. I hear
Here's
that
to
all the
health.
time. Yes. To your health.